I call the Honourable Minister Judith Collins.
Good evening, Mr Speaker, and thank you for the call. I must say it's a pleasure to be able to stand and speak in support of this budget, because as budgets go, this has been quite extraordinary. We've had the most difficult economic times that we inherited when we came into government, and having listened to some of the opposition members tonight, it's been marvellous to think that they live in a world where there was no economic recession and that everything should have just had money. We should have the coffers full of money just flowing in and everything would be fine. But actually most of the world is still going through some very difficult financial times, and frankly much worse than what we're going through. But we have been very fortunate in many ways. But we haven't been fortunate in having to deal with some real tragedies. We've had the Pike River tragedy, and we've had the earthquake, particularly the earthquake this year in Christchurch, which has killed 182 people and cost this country billions and billions of dollars. And it has cost this government billions and billions of dollars. And the fact is that we cannot afford to leave the people of Christchurch to fend for themselves. We cannot do that. As a responsible government, we cannot let our second largest city, 20% of our economy, just wither and die. And it behoves all of us New Zealanders to be able to support Christchurch during this time. And what I've seen is that this budget has actually achieved something else quite miraculous, and that is it has been able to help to achieve the lowest interest rates that we have seen in New Zealand since 1964. 1964, the year I started school. Now, when I think about that, I say, who would have thought that in this time, yes, a mere few years ago, Mr Woodhouse, you're quite right, that we would be having this. Now, we've heard a lot about inflation. I heard an opposition member tonight talk about inflation being at 4.5%. Well, she clearly didn't know that when Labor left office, the inflation rate was 5.1%. And the 4.5% actually includes the increase in GST, so that's actually a one-off situation. But what this lowest interest rate since 1964 means for most families who own their own homes, or young couples who have bought their own home and have a $200,000 mortgage, which is completely an average size mortgage, in fact quite modest mortgage for many families, particularly those in the Auckland region, what it means is $200 a week extra in their pockets that they're not having to pay in interest to a bank. That's what it means. That's real money in someone's pocket, Mr Speaker. What we've also seen is that average after-tax wages have increased 7.1% in the last year, and that's significantly faster than, in real terms, than the inflation rate. So actually most people are better off despite the very tough economic times. We've already heard that we've got something over 2/3 of New Zealanders paying a top rate tax rate of 17%. 17.5%. That means that actually most people in New Zealand now are keeping a far greater chunk of the money that they earn in income. What this budget has been able to achieve is increases in education, increases in health, increases in the justice sector. So it has also been able to help to look after the people of the Christchurch region, or Canterbury region, but also to be able to look at increasing those spends. In my own sector, in the justice sector, I am absolutely thrilled that we've been able to secure for the Serious Fraud Office an increase in its budget, because it is still dealing with the aftermath of the finance industry's, could say, meltdown and issues regarding fraud. These are, and when I listened to some of the talk tonight about asset sales or mixed ownership models in relation to some of the SOEs, what I also forget to hear from or don't hear from the opposition is the fact that this actually will mean that many New Zealand mums and dads will be able to purchase shares in good New Zealand-owned companies that they can have reliance and faith in. They will no longer to have to actually put their money into finance companies that go bust because they're lending on schemes. That's what we're seeing. We're seeing New Zealanders being able to invest in their own country, KiwiSaver being able to invest in its own country actually, being able to invest here and help New Zealanders get jobs and to keep jobs. What I also noticed the other day was, oh gosh, unemployment's come down again. And did I hear anything from the opposition about that? No, not a dicky bird. Not a dicky bird. Not a word of congratulations to my colleague, the Honourable Paula Bennett. Not a word. Not a word of congratulations to the employers of New Zealand who have given more people a chance. Not a word of that. Not a word of acknowledgement that people are actually getting out, doing their very best. Not a word of acknowledgement to my colleague, the Honourable Kate Wilkinson, that the 90-day bill actually has helped get a lot of people into jobs. Not a word of acknowledgement, not a word at all. What I heard instead is let's raise the minimum wage, which would actually lose about 6,000 people their jobs. But never mind, they don't care about that, do they? So what we've also seen is a reduction in government borrowing, because I think it's important that we explain again for the opposition why this is so important, how it is that the interest rates have been able to be kept low. Since the 1964, just in case anyone forgot it, the year that I started school, and by the way, only with a play centre education before that, I have to say, and a doting mother and father who read to me. But, you know, somehow I managed. Yes, 3 degrees later, I still seem to somehow get through. I don't know how that happened. But frankly, what that means is that because this government is cutting debt, and because the ratings agencies can see that we are being extremely responsible, that our plan is actually a plan that works, not a plan that just makes plans and nothing else, they have faith in New Zealand. This is an outstanding result for a budget that has been able to deliver for so many families. Yes, we know that it's tough in the public service at the moment, but actually it's been tough for years in the private sector. It's been tough for years under higher interest rates. It's been tough for years with red tape, and this government has to set about redressing some of that imbalance. What we've also seen is more money for health. We've had more money for health at a time when so many other comparable countries are having to cut their health budgets, cut their justice budgets, cut their education budgets, and yet this government has been able to actually produce more money for health, but even better than that, and I think the Ministry of Health should get some credit for this, and their minister, is we've been able to get better outcomes for Kiwis. So we've now got, what's the longest time that anyone has to wait for cancer treatment? What a month it is now. Under Labor, people were waiting 9 months and going off to Australia for it. We had to look to Australia for our health system, and now instead it's happening here. An outstanding result around more nurses, more doctors. But in police, I can't help but talk about this just a wee bit, I'm so proud of them, 600 extra frontline staff by the end of this year. That's an outstanding result. Crime dropped by 6.7% per capita across the country. In some parts of New Zealand, the Waitemata area, 12% reduction in crime. In the county's Manukau area, 9% reduction in crime. In the Auckland area, 10% reduction in crime. We are seeing some staggering results where the public service is really showing what it can do. Unlike the Labor Party, I've got faith that the public service can do even better. I've got faith that they understand that these are tough times. Everybody's got to pull together. Everybody's got to be looking after how we can do better as a country. We're just a little country, Mr. Speaker, but we can be very proud of this very good budget.